Ever notice your dog slowing down and having health issues and wonder, what can I do to make them better? Well, my friend, add Rough Greens to your dog's food for 90 days and I guarantee you'll see changes that will amaze you. Greetings, naturopathic Dr. Dennis Black, inventor of Rough Greens here, and I invite you to give your pup the Rough Greens 90-day challenge. In the first 30 days, you'll see shinier coats and increased energy. By day 60, your dog will have a stronger immune system, less shedding, improved joint function, all due to the live nutrients that you've added to their diet. And at 90 days, better digestion, reduced inflammation, improved heart health, and you may even have reduced their cancer risk. Fetch your dog a free Jumpstart trial bag today. Go to tryroughgreens.com. Use promo code TRYROUGH. That's TRYRUFF. Go to tryroughgreens.com. Use promo code TRYROUGH. You discover the shipping. You don't have to change your dog's food to improve your dog's health. Just add a scoop of Rough Greens.
Ahmaud was taking a jog. Little did he know that it would be his very last jog he would ever take. Well, today, we're going to take a look at the controversial Ahmaud Arbery case. We'll give you an update on the Lori Vallow case with any new news that was just released. This and a whole lot more on what some people have claimed the fastest 30 minutes in crime talk. Listener, please do go to charliecrimebuster.com and subscribe if you've not yet done so. Take a moment to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and support us on the social platforms of your choice. It is helpful in us getting the word out. We present Crime Talk with lessons on each podcast. Well, around 2 months ago, actually on February the 23rd, there was a young man by the name of Ahmaud Arbery. He took a jog in the neighborhood. Well, that run ended up being deadly for this young man. A former detective, Gregory McMichael, and his son, Travis McMichael, took it upon themselves to run the young man down because McMichael told officers that he thought that he looked like a person that was suspected in a series of recent break-ins in the area. Now, according to McMichael, after they found him, Arbery and McMichael's son, Travis, they struggled over a shotgun that Travis was carrying, and 2 shots were fired before Arbery fell to the street. Please take a note of this and remember that he said when talking to the police that there were 2 shots. You're going to find that to be contradicted later in the story. Well, McMichael states that the shots were shot in self-defense, but was it? Add to the case that one recent video shows that Arbery did stop at a house under construction and he entered into it. But let me ask you a question. Does that mean that he was involved in illegal activity? Well, other than maybe trespassing? You see, most states have laws that do say that if someone is committing a felony, you have a right to stop that person. But simply stopping to enter into a construction site and view the work in progress, well, that's really not a felony. So was it reasonable? Was it reasonable that the father and son, self-appointed neighborhood watchers, follow Ahmaud to see what he was up to? And was it in their right to arm themselves as they did so? Now hold it a moment. There is one more very important observation. Ahmaud Arbery? Well, he is black. And McMichael and his son, well, they are white. Remind you of anything else? Can you say Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman? And just like that case, authorities were slow to make an arrest. In fact, in the Ahmaud Arbery case, it was almost 2 months later, and only after a recent video, which we will describe to you in this podcast, surfaced that showed the shooting. It was after that authorities did make an arrest in this case. Well, we're going to tell you more about that story in just a moment. But now it's time for us to do what we call our Courageous Citizen of the Week story. This is a special time when we do always recognize those citizens that are courageous. And in speaking of courageous and courage, all of us are very, very grateful, I'm sure, for the medical people, the doctors and nurses and support workers out there that are all our heroes during this pandemic. But here is one nurse that stands out as our hero of the week. You see, a middle-aged nurse stopped at Starbucks back in Tucson, Arizona on her way home. That was on January the 17th. Now, upon returning to her car, a man with a knife entered on the passenger side of her vehicle, and that man began to hit her repeatedly in the face, in the neck, and all over the body. Well, this woman, who, by the way, I might add, was also ex-military, she said she was able to grab the man's knife hand and then retrieve her firearm from the purse with the other hand. She pointed the gun at the man and told him to stop or she would shoot. Well, the man, he fled, and at that time he was still being sought by the police. You see, this nurse who was already on the front lines, this woman is our hero of the week. And while she certainly had a right to defend herself of deadly force, she opted to use the weapon in a defensive posture instead. You see, my friend, just because you have the right does not mean that you have to shoot. Now, many times in these situations, it really boils down totally to you, your gut feeling. And unfortunately, no one can really make that call for you. You see, this lady used restraint and defended herself without taking another life. Now, maybe you and I would have handled it differently, but in the end, the person on the other end of the gun, that's the person that has to choose what to do. And based on training and experience, you'll usually find that you're doing the correct thing. But now our self-appointed neighborhood watch father and son duo, well, they chose to engage this young man that was jogging in the neighborhood. And their story ended up with a young 25-year-old man dead. Now, a few weeks ago on the podcast, I told you about drug dealers that were finding plenty of business in this COVID-19 lockdown. And this story brings other people who are jogging into the spotlight. The coronavirus drug dealers dress as joggers and use fake NHSID badges in lockdown. That's what the headline said. And the article went on to say they changed tactics to avoid infection by doing letterbox drops or drive-by sales and throwing drugs from cars. That's what an expert says. You see, drug dealers are now dressing as joggers and using fake NHSID badges to avoid police detection. That's all during the coronavirus lockdown. That's what an expert on gangs was telling us in this article. Now, they're changing their tactics, and they're doing that to avoid infection by doing letterbox drops or drive-by sales. You see, money is also being tossed on the back seat during the deals to keep items clean. That's what the director of the National Center for Gang Research says. Now, Professor Harding, he said that on one hand, they are really heeding government advice on social distancing. But at the same time, it is business as usual, and people were panic buying food, while dealers were running bulk deals and selling lockdown party packs. But our story today is about another man who was out jogging, and there is much more to it than really meets the eye. Now, those that know Arbery, according to a CNN report, stated that it was not unusual for the former high school player to be jogging, and that he often jogged in the neighborhood southwest of Brunswick. His loved ones described him as a very good young man. His father, Marcus Arbery Sr., stated on Friday, on what would have been Arbery's son's 26th birthday, he stated that his heart was always in the right place and that he just loved people. Now, we're going to tell you more about the video that surfaced recently, which prompted a delayed arrest to McMichael and his son. And we're going to show you another side of the story regarding the activities surrounding Arbery, who has been described as a very good young man. And what would you say that if I told you that the McMichaels and Arbery, well, that they had been in contact with each other before the shooting? Well, we're going to get to that in a moment. But first, let me update you on the Lori Vallow case. You see, last week on the podcast, we shared that there were at least 5 premature deaths linked to Lori Vallow, her sister, who died at 31, and her third husband, who died in midlife. Now, her fourth husband was shot and killed by Lori's brother Alex Cox, and then, of course, Tammy Daybell, his late wife of Lori's new husband Chad Daybell, and then Alex Cox himself, all premature deaths. Well, one of those have been cleared up. Or has it been? You see, we were all wondering what happened to Lori's spiritual hitman, Alex Cox, who died mysteriously at age 51. Well, on this past Friday, the county medical examiner's office issued a report, and it said that Cox died of a blood clot in his lung and heart disease. You see, there were rampant rumors of evil plots and conspiracy, which the family said robbed themselves of their time to grieve the losses of their husband, son, brother, and uncle. Cox's wife, mother, sister, and niece said that in a statement issued through an attorney. This is all according to the East Idaho News. And they said, quote, "Even so, the family finds comfort in the medical examiner's finding that Alex Cox died of natural causes." But wait a minute, not so fast. You see, there's still a mystery, because according to a report by KNEWZ, the autopsy curiously found Narcan. That's right, Narcan, a drug used to reverse opioid overdoses in Alex's system. Now, the family says he was not a drug user and not on any regular medications. Now, Lori Vallow, who's 46 years of age, she was arrested in Hawaii back in February on child abandonment charges. That was in the disappearance of her children, J.J. Vallow, 7 years of age, and Tally Ryan at age 17. And Idaho police, they say that children that are reported missing back in September, well, they're telling us that Vallow is still refusing to help them find the children. And while we might take this death off the suspicious deaths investigation chart in this twisted tale, well, we're now going to have to replace it. We're going to have to replace it with another one, because a source from the FBI told people that the Bureau is indeed now investigating Joseph Ryan's, Lori's third husband's death. Joseph, you see, was Tylee's biological father. Joseph's sister, Ann Cushing, she did report that the FBI interviewed her for hours about her brother's death. He now reportedly, quote-unquote, died of a heart attack. And there was that nasty custody case between him and Lori. Remember, this is the same husband that Lori's spiritual hitman, Alex Cox, who's now deceased, well, he had assaulted this man with a stun gun, and Alex spent 90 days in jail for the crime. Now, if you want to know more about this twisted case, we do invite you to our website, where you can download the entire series regarding Lori Vallow. We have Lori Vallow, Where Are Your Children? Lori Vallow, What Was She Thinking? Lori Vallow's Spiritual Hitman, Lori Vallow's Accomplice, and our last, Lori Vallow's Doomsday Club. All of those are available on our website, and you can visit us at charliecrimebuster.com. That's charliecrimebuster.com. Well, back to our feature story. We're talking about Ahmaud Arbery, the young man shot to death as he was jogging in his neighborhood, and he got into an unfortunate tussle with a man with a shotgun. And we're also going to tell you about the video that got things moving along in the rest in the case. Now, people who knew Ahmaud did describe him as a very good young man. However, this young man, according to the Brunswick News, well, he was indicted for allegedly bringing a gun to a 2013 high school basketball game when he was 19 years of age. And the family attorney, Lee Merritt, well, he did acknowledge Arbery's 2018 arrest on a shoplifting charge, which Merritt now calls absurd and says has nothing to do with his murder. However, what is most interesting is that, in a letter written on April the 7th, Judicial Circuit District Attorney George Barnhill. Well, he wrote that his son, Barnhill's son, and the suspect, Gregory McMichael, well, that they helped with an earlier prosecution of Arbery when they both worked for the Brunswick Judicial Circuit District Attorney's Office. And now, the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, which first reported Barnhill's letter, stated McMichael previously investigated Arbery. You see, that letter was sent to the office of Georgia Attorney General Chris Carr. Now, it failed to state what the prior prosecution was for, or the investigation, or even when it took place. But according to the letter, it did. McMichael had been involved in investigating the young man that his son, Travis, ended up shooting in what they claimed was self-defense. Now, remember when we earlier reported that an arrest report had stated that Arbery looked like a suspect in some recent burglaries? Well, Glenn County Police Lieutenant Sheriff Bachelor, told CNN this week that just one automobile burglary in the neighborhood was reported. And in that one, a 9mm pistol was stolen on January the 1st from an unlocked truck. But hey, guess where the truck was parked? The plot thickens. That truck was parked outside McMichael's home. Was this one of the reasons the McMichaels appointed themselves to the Armed Neighborhood Watch? And keep in mind, before the video surfaced, even before it surfaced, and before Attorney Barnhill recused himself from the case, he wrote a separate letter to the police saying, quote, he believed Gregory and Travis McMichael were within their rights to make a citizen arrest of Arbery at the time of the shooting. He went on to say, quote, it appears their intent was to stop and hold this criminal suspect until law enforcement arrived. Under Georgia law, this is perfectly legal. End of quote. Now, this is that which Barnhill wrote on the April 2nd letter. You see, Barnhill also questioned whether Arbery could have been responsible for the gunshots by pulling on the shotgun. And he wrote that Gregory McMichael was allowed to use deadly force to protect himself. Now, all this, of course, was before the video surfaced. So what was it about this video? What was it about this video that changed the status of the case? We're going to answer that in just a moment. But now it's time for our crazy crook story. As you know, from time to time, we are finding ourselves talking about some very dark things, usually about death and murder and all kinds of crime. So we try to lighten it up on each podcast by sharing with you a crazy crook story, something that'll help you to smile and chuckle in these dark times. And this one is a crazy one for sure. You see, a motorist had attempted to throw out, over $30,000 worth of cocaine. Throw it out of his van window after being chased by the police. But his plan was quickly thwarted when, because, get this, while he was getting ready to throw the drugs out the window, he failed to realize that the window wasn't rolled down. You see, police officers stopped the man while he was driving, and when they approached the vehicle, they quickly spotted that the inside of his vehicle was covered in white powder. Well, it appeared that the unarmed man had tried to lob the drugs out the window, but the window wasn't open, and the drugs simply smashed up against the window. Well, the man, as you can guess, was charged, and later appeared in court, where he did plead guilty to possession of Class A drugs with the intent to supply. He's going to be sentenced later this month. Now, Steve Lloyd, the lead investigator, stated that also he was trying to pass himself off as a key essential worker, which gave him the right to be out on the road during the lockdown. But even that, for this crazy crook, did not succeed. Police went on to say, possessing drugs with the intent to supply does not qualify as essential work. The officer went on to say, I hope this will serve as a warning to others who wish to bring drugs into the area that it will not be tolerated. And he goes on, we want to let potential criminals know that this is business as usual, and we will continue to pursue those who target some of the most vulnerable people in our communities, end of quote. So, I guess, my friend, if you're trying to get rid of your drugs while the po-po is chasing you, guess maybe you ought to try rolling down the window first. Well, we do have two sides to our feature story today. You see, most of the country is alarmed that another young man has lost his life in what has been termed by many as a tragic, senseless shooting. Then we have others who are claiming self-defense. If someone grabs your weapon and tries to take it away from you, can you defend yourself with deadly force? That is the question that no doubt will come up at a trial in this case. However, it was the video that led officials to finally make an arrest in the case. So let me tell you a little bit about the video. I've seen it myself on several occasions, and you can find the video out there online. Now, this past Tuesday, the video was released by a local radio personality. It was taken by someone in a vehicle that pulled up behind the pickup truck, stopped in the road. It captured events that do indeed match certain accounts of the shooting. You see, at the beginning of the video, you see Arbery jogging down the middle of the street. Then he approaches the pickup truck parked in the road. Gregory, the father, he's in the bed of the truck, and his son, Travis, he's standing near the driver's side door. Once Arbery gets there, he and Travis McMichael are wrestling for the gun. The first shot goes off, and the two disappear off the screen on the left side of it. It appears that Arbery throws a punch. Now, an autopsy report that was seen by Brandhill, well, it said that shot went through Arbery's right palm, which would be consistent with Arbery grabbing the gun barrel. Meanwhile, Gregory, Travis' father, well, he takes out a handgun, but he doesn't shoot or fire the weapon. You can hear a second shot as the men are struggling off the camera. And as they come back into focus, both are still wrestling with a shotgun. Now, this is also consistent with the autopsy and the witness account that the second shot showed Travis McMichael attempting to push the gun away from Arbery, while Arbery was pulling it toward himself. Now, again, Arbery appears to throw another punch at Travis McMichael's head, and then you heard the third gunshot. As blood then appears on Arbery's shirt below his left rib cage, and then he stumbles and he falls in the middle of the road. Now, it was also reported that Gregory McMichael had blood on his hands when the police arrived. That's what a Glenn County police officer observed. That officer reported that blood came from Gregory McMichael turning Arbery's body over to check for a gun. Now, the report does not say that any weapon was found on Arbery. Now, while some say that the video shows malicious murder, others say it shows that the gunman acted in self-defense. And again, it is almost certain that this case will be settled in court. And as usual, we would love to hear your comments on the case. What do you think so far? Were the charges justified? What in the world was these two self-appointed neighborhood watchmen doing out there in the first place? We would love to hear your comments. You can contact us at charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. That's charliecrimebuster@gmail.com. And speaking of this similar case to the Trayvon Martin case, well, that's very obvious. Number one, most tragic, a young black man loses his life. And number two, people are placing themselves into the role that is best left to law enforcement. And number three, racial tension is everywhere. Speaking of the similarities to the Trayvon Martin case, I would like to let you know that there's another story that's brewing right now as we do this podcast. There was a man in Sanford who found someone who was trying to break into his vehicle. He shot what he called warning shots at that individual, and that young man was killed. Now, it is true that evidence seems to point that this young man was engaging in a felony, that he was trying to steal the man's car. But again, there is all kinds of controversy. Does that really mean that the homeowner has the right to shoot the man? Well, again, that one's going to be headed for court as well. But there's a little different slide on this story. Remember the George Zimmerman case? Remember the attorney that successfully argued and won the case for George Zimmerman? Well, that attorney right now is switched to the other side. This time, he's going to be representing the family of the young man that was shot by the homeowner who saw this man trying to steal his vehicle. And as unusual as it all gets, get this, it happened in the same city, Sanford, Florida, where George Zimmerman took the life of Trayvon Martin. Only this time, the attorney that successfully argued self-defense for Zimmerman, he's on the other side. He's representing the victim this time. So there's going to be a lot of controversy, and we're going to see a lot of things end up in court. But in the meantime, what kind of lessons can we learn? Well, there's some lessons that are very obviously here. Number one, if you are armed, use and draw your weapon only when you absolutely have to. You see, just because you have the right to do something does not mean that it's the right thing to do. Let me say that again. Just because you have the right to do something does not mean it is the right thing to do. If you see a crime, report it and let law enforcement officials handle it. Use your weapon to protect yourself and family or loved ones only when your life is in danger. Protect others, but do not try to police others. Let me say that again. Protect others, but do not try to police others. You see, trying to be the popo when you are not the popo only gets very messy and too often deadly. You can expect to be charged when you have to discharge your weapon, even if you're protecting yourself from imminent danger. So don't make it worse by doing so when there is no imminent danger. And if you are racially profiled, I can probably think, though I could not understand that situation the way others understand it, but I can think it would be very, very, very tempting for you to stand up for your rights. But please be careful. There will be a time and place for you to stand up for your rights, and others will stand with you. In the meantime, it's best to comply with the law and with armed people, even if they're in the wrong. Again, there will be a time, and with cameras and videos today, you will be able to plead your case for justice and be alive to do that. You see, there is a thing as being right, and then finding out that you're dead right. Life is precious. We see that more than ever in this pandemic today. Live it full, live it large, but live it safe. And so until this time next time, this is Charlie Crimebuster, and we will be seeing a whole lot more of this case, I'm sure, in the news ahead, and we'll be talking about it from podcast to podcast. So until this time next time, be safe, be alert. For the life you save, it may be your very own.
This podcast is sponsored by Talkspace. You know when you're really stressed or not feeling so great about your life or about yourself? Talking to someone who understands can really help. But who is that person? How do you find them? Where do you even start? Talkspace. Talkspace makes it easy to get the support you need. With Talkspace, you can go online, answer a few questions about your preferences, and be matched with a therapist. And because you'll meet your therapist online, you don't have to take time off work or arrange childcare. You'll meet on your schedule, wherever you feel most at ease. If you're depressed, stressed, struggling with a relationship, or if you want some counseling for you and your partner, or just need a little extra one-on-one support, Talkspace is here for you. Plus, Talkspace works with most major insurers, and most insured members have a $0 copay. No insurance? No problem. Now get $80 off of your first month with promo code SPACE80 when you go to Talkspace.com. Match with a licensed therapist today at Talkspace.com. Save $80 with code SPACE80 at Talkspace.com.